Hi everyone, I'm Matt and welcome back to Toylytics, where we take a look at the analytical side of toy collecting. This video, we're going to take a look at the Figura Obscura line of figures and how their prices have been changing on the secondary market as of the end of the fourth quarter 2024. So let's take a look at the figures that have been released so far. Again, you can see the entire Figure Obscura history here since 2021. Most recently, we've seen the retail releases of the Monkey King, the Mask of the Red Death, and the Ghost of Jacob Marley, all the retail repaints there. And then in 2024, we saw Anubis and Bastet in around April or May. We saw Frankenstein's Creature in October, and most recently, we saw the Ghost of Christmas Past in December. So let's take a look at the data itself and see how these have been selling. So looking at the number of figures sold by quarter, some interesting results here. We can see that Anubis and Bastet have been falling a little bit, haven't been quite as popular in fourth quarter as they were earlier in the year. Not surprising, as figures, have been on the market for a longer period of time. They tend to have a little bit less demand in a lot of cases, but not the case for Father Christmas, right? So Father Christmas, we saw 30 in quarter four, just like we saw 35 in quarter four of 2023, much higher than the demand in other times of the year. So I think we'll look at how the prices have changed too, but at least as far as demand is concerned, a lot more sales for Father Christmas in the fourth quarter than there were other times of the year. Probably makes sense, right? Because we have that Christmas theme there. Um, Frankenstein's Creature, really popular figure, right? Sold 58 copies. That's the most of any figure, any single figure here at least. Ghost of Christmas Past, not a lot. These didn't get into a lot of people's hands in December, so not a lot of chance for a lot of them to be sold there. Ghost of Jacob Marley, again, good, a little bit higher than quarter three, but not a whole lot sold. Headless Horseman is still lots sold every single quarter. So again, quarter four also does include October, so makes sense that there would be a little bit more popular at that time of year too. But that's still a really popular figure. Krampus again came up, not as many sold in the fourth quarter 24 as sold in the fourth quarter of 23, but still a pretty good amount and definitely more than in quarter three. Mask of the Red Death again selling pretty well, and then Monkey King a little bit surprisingly falling off a little bit. Right, he was the most popular figure obscure for a while, the most units sold, but then in quarter four only 25 sold, and then six of the retail exclusive sold as well. So kind of interesting to see there on a month by month basis. Looking at this, you can see that not surprisingly, this spike here in October was Frankenstein's Creature. Kind of makes sense, right? We also saw pretty good spike for the Headless Horseman in October as well. And then we have Father Christmas sold pretty good number of copies in November, and not even as many in December, right? So there were 10 sold, Father Christmases sold in December and 13 sold in November. So people were even preparing for Christmas a little bit early. They're kind of surprising that didn't see more of those sales in December than we would have seen in November. Let's look at the average selling prices for these. So we're going to have to do some scrolling. Now, I don't have these in, sort of decreasing, um, size of the average selling price here. That's the bar order here, like I often do in my videos. I wanted to keep the figures together, right? So you can see the Anubis and Bastet up at the top. Then we have all the Father Christmases, then the Frankenstein's Creature, and the All In, and that sort of thing. If you see RE, RE means retail exclusive. So for Father Christmas, for example, that's the green one, and then the regular Father Christmas is the red one. Looking at the dots, the orange dot is the maximum price, the blue dot is the minimum price, and then, as I said, the bar is the average. So again, these are just the fourth quarter selling prices. So you can see that Anubis himself selling for a little bit above 80, Bastet selling for less than that, about 73. Father Christmas selling above $90 on average, but the retail exclusive, the green one, not selling anywhere close to what the red one's selling for. Almost, a little bit more than half of what the red one is selling for at right around $50 or so. Frankenstein's Creature selling really well too. High price there of about $125 or so. Ghost of Christmas Past selling pretty high, above 100 as well, especially considering the buy-in price of $60 there. So it's a pretty good markup on that. Ghost of Jacob Marley again holding steady right around 95 or so. Headless Horseman, the individual, or the, I should say, the original one, there is selling for 159, and the retail exclusive one, that's the green one, a lot of people like better, still selling for a lower price than 138. Maybe due to demand, or sorry, maybe due to supply in that case, because I think demand, a lot of people really like that retail exclusive version, but I don't think there were as many of the original version created as the retail version. Krampus, again, similar story to Father Christmas. The original one, the black one, selling for 112 on average, and the red one here, the retail exclusive one, selling for 72.60. Mask of the Red Death, again, selling a little bit less than 100 for the regular version, the original version, and then the new version selling for right um, around that $70 or so retail. And again, Monkey King, a similar sort of story, selling for about $95 or so, 96 in this case, for the regular version, and then the new version selling for just above retail at 71.70. Retail on all those retail exclusive Figure Obscuras is $70. Okay. Let's look at how the quarterly average prices have changed over time. And you can see that Nubis and Bastet falling pretty significantly there, Anubis falling, Bastet falling as well. Father Christmas, though, right, we saw a lot more figures, but also a higher price too, right? So demand was definitely higher in this case, and supply, changes prices to sort of match that demand. So $94 compared with somewhere around $70 to $80 for every other time in the year. Okay, so if you wanted to buy into Father Christmas, it probably makes sense to buy one not in quarter four to plan ahead, right? So maybe buy one in quarter two, quarter three. Not as many people are thinking about Christmas at that time. You can probably get a better price if you wanted one here. But again, the retail exclusive, right, only selling for 51. So maybe a lot more people selling that green one, and not as much demand for it, so the price went down. So if you want that red one, though, I would recommend trying to find one in maybe quarter two or quarter three of 2025. Looking at the changes as well, you can see Jacob Marley, not quite at his highs as when he was first released, but off of his lows. Again, that Christmas figure not really having a lot, a Christmas related figure not really having a lot of demand in quarter two, quarter three as well. Headless Horseman, though, kind of bucks that trend, right? So again, a little bit lower prices here in quarter two and quarter three, not in the Halloween season, but not much lower, right? So pretty consistent over the course of the year, right around that 140 to 160 dollar price there. Krampus, similar story to Father Christmas. Again, lower prices in quarter two and quarter three, higher in quarter four. So again, if you wanted one of those, I would again recommend trying to get one in quarter two or quarter three of 2025. Mask of the Red Death, sort of similar story to Headless Horseman, just not as high prices overall. Higher prices in quarter four, lower prices in slightly lower, I should say, prices in quarter two and quarter three. And then we have the Monkey King, and again, we saw not as many sales, but price kind of holding steady at around 95, to $100 or so on average. Be interesting to see some of these, how the Mask of the Red Death, the Monkey King, and Ghost of Jacob Marley, how the retail exclusive availability affects their prices in 2025. Because again, with the data that we're seeing here, the retail exclusives were only available in late November of 2024. So we're not seeing a whole lot of impact there. That was only in the month of December would we have seen any sort of impact where people have a choice, right? They could get the original version of the figure, or they can get the retail exclusive version of the figure. Well, something to keep an eye on moving forward into 2025. And then finally, we will look at the sales of the figures overall. So I'm going to group all these together, right, related to each individual listing. So looking overall at Anubis and Bastet, the set of them, the two together, you can see are somewhere around that 160 to 180, although the average seems to be coming down a little bit here, right? So we're looking at maybe about 150 to 180 there. So if you see the set for around 150, that's probably a pretty good price. Individually, if you're just looking for Anubis, that's the gray. There you can see that a lot of Anubises have sold recently for that, generally I would say $60 to $90 range. And Bastet also, somewhat similar. Maybe a few were selling a little bit less. Here's one for $46, but most of them are again about 60 to 80 to 90, maybe $85 there for the individual figures. So I would say in general, if you could find each one individually for 60 or $70, that's better than what the set seems to be going for, kind of paradoxically. Okay, Father Christmas. Let's take a look at these. So we have the red one is the blue box. That's a little bit off there, but hopefully you understand what I mean, right? And then we have the green robes showing as the orange data points here. So certainly we can see that the blue, for the most part, definitely higher than the orange as far as prices are concerned. And we can see those prices increasing significantly into quarter 4. So again, this is not the time to buy Father Christmas. The time to buy the Father Christmas, as we saw in the past, was around somewhere between like March and September when the prices were somewhere around, $80 to $100, not when it was, from 100 up to 125 or so for the most part. Right. The retail exclusive, has actually come down, right? So you may be able to pick one up if you like that green one, or maybe you need it for customs, or take the figure apart and use the robes for something, use the body for something, use the head for something else. You may be able to find one now for $40 or $50, and that's probably a pretty good deal if you're able to get one at that price. Frankenstein's creature, we had a couple all-in sell, but most of the sales are the figure itself, and you can see that the price has been increasing, right? So there were a lot of sales here in October for around 100 up to 140, and more recently in December, we're seeing most sales between 130 and 150 or so, right? So it's less likely that you're able to see a Frankenstein's creature here at this point for less than about 130. Again, we may see that effect of Halloween. If you don't have one, you're looking for one. You may decide to roll the dice. It might make sense to roll the dice and just wait at this point rather than pay 130. See if the price goes down in the middle part of the year when people aren't thinking about Halloween. Quarter 2, Quarter 3, that sort of thing. But if you want one now, it seems like around 130 is about as low as they've been going in the past month. Goes to Christmas past. Again, not a whole lot to look at here. As you can see, we had some sales for about 102 up to 105, and then a few more selling for about 120, right? So one sold pretty low, but the rest of them sold for over $100. I would say, again, this one, not a whole lot of data to go with here, but you should be able to get one for right around 100, or I would probably roll the dice on that one and wait a little bit. Because I think, Ghost of Christmas Past especially is one of those, just like Father Christmas. A lot of people aren't going to be thinking about that in, April, May, June, that sort of thing. You may be able to get one for, $80 to $90 at that point. Goes to Jacob Marley. Again, we have very few of our retail figures here selling for right around that $70 retail price, but everything else is the original release. And you can see he's kind of all over the place. So he was high when he was released. So this is exactly what I'm thinking is going to happen with the Ghost of Christmas Past. You have a high price when it was first released. It was selling pretty consistently for about 110 to 140. Then we saw in the middle of the year, all right, April through August, not a lot of people thinking about the Ghost of Jacob Marley. He was selling then for anywhere from about $60 to $100, and then once it started getting into the fourth quarter again, the price started increasing. And I'm thinking that we're going to see that same sort of thing happen with the Ghost of Christmas Past. Okay. Then we have the Headless Horseman. Right, and you can see that he was selling pretty consistently back in 2023 for 160 to 220, the original version. We saw that kind of take a hit when the spectral green version was released, and they were selling for consistently around 140. And you're starting to see more of those spectral green. They were selling for 140 and maybe a little bit less forever, but we see a lot more sales here of that spectral green version, that retail exclusive version, above 140, I think a lot of the retailers are starting to sell out, right? So this is the point where, I think both of these are probably going to be on the rise moving forward. So if you see one for, 140 or less, I would say that either of those figures is probably a pretty good deal at this point, because my guess is that they're both going to rise because those are really popular figures. And I think that retail version is not available a whole lot of places anymore. Looking at Krampus, here we have the yellow or orange, whatever that is, color is the regular version, the black version, and then the red version is the blue data points. So again, we can see that pretty significant spike in price for the black Krampus, going for about 100 to 140, and even in one case up to 159, pretty high. The red version of Krampus again spiking relatively though, going from 60 up to about 100 in some cases. So again, this is another one of those where I think in the middle part of the year you can generally get some better deals when people aren't thinking as much. But I don't know if people necessarily equate Krampus with Christmas as much as Father Christmas with Christmas, for example, there, or the Ghost of Christmas Past, or the Ghost of Jacob Marley, or something like that. So the prices aren't that much lower in the middle of the year, but they definitely do seem to spike toward the fourth quarter. So again, if you're looking for one, I would hold off a little bit, maybe get into late first quarter, early second quarter until you start looking for a Krampus. Couple more here. We'll look at the Mask of the Red Death. So the regular version is this sort of lighter teal color. The retail version, not a whole lot of sales, but again, right around that retail price of $70 in the darker blue. Again, Mask of the Red Death, again, saw that increase in quarter four, especially getting into the Halloween season. But again, more sales in November and December as well, in that $90 to about $120 range. So I think if you see one for you know, less than 100, even less than, especially less than 90, that's probably a pretty good price. We'll see though what happens. It may certainly come down since we have the availability of that retail version now. Again, it depends on what people think of the colors and whether or not people like the colors more. And, with that Father Christmas, people want the red. They don't want the green as much. That is very clear. With the Headless Horseman, it's a little more split, and we saw a little bit different sort of effect with that. So, again, not a lot of data here. We only have about 6 weeks worth of data when these were released. So, we'll have to keep an eye on it moving forward. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And we'll finish up with Monkey King, and we'll see what his prices looked at. And again, we have this orange color here. These are the retail releases. These are some pre-orders, by the way, so I don't always include those, but sometimes I do include them, especially if it's getting close to the release time. I do include them in the data. But in general, you can see that the Monkey King has been relatively stable as far as prices are concerned, but a really wide variance or variation in prices. Right, in some cases he's been selling for $80, even into quarter four or below. Other cases he's been selling for north of 130, right? So I think this is one where, there's a lot available, a lot up for sale. You can still get them for that, $80 to $100 range. I don't think you need to spend more than $100, and you probably don't even need to spend more than $90 in a lot of cases. I think if you just be a little bit patient, you can probably pick one up for a little bit less than 90. But again, we'll see what happens with the gold. I think it's called the Golden Sage, the retail version. That may cause the price of the original version to drop a little bit, but we'll have to keep an eye on it because we're not really sure what will happen. That is it for Figura Obscura. So we're starting to see a little bit more interesting data here now that we have those retail releases for some of the more recent ones to be able to see what happens there. So we'll keep an eye on it moving forward. I'm going to move on to some other lines and start making some videos on those. Thanks again for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, etc., as everybody always says, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.